Free at last. Gunmen in northern Nigeria release hundreds of kidnapped schoolgirls. But abductions like these are on the rise. So can anything be done to break the cycle? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Rob Matheson, and Nigeria's government is hailing the safe return of the latest group of kidnapped school children. Gunmen have released 279 girls who were taken from their school in northwestern Zamfara state on Friday. Now, the governor insists no ransom was paid, saying so-called repentant bandits helped to secure the release. But abductions in northern Nigeria are becoming more common and lucrative. A security firm based in Lagos says kidnappers have received at least $11 million between 2016 and March 2020. Ahmed Idris has more from Gusau in Zamfara state.
They arrived at dawn, limped their way into the office of the governor, exhausted and some too sick to work. They have served meals in an office where normally cabinet meetings are held. With their first decent meals in days, they gathered the strength to tell us what happened.
They drove us like animals. Some of us were falling and getting injured. They made us trek for 2 to 3 hours and spent the first 2 days in the camp. They pushed us forward, threatening to kill anyone who refused to move. Despite the blisters on our feet, they forced us to walk further until we reached the second and then the third camp.
The 279 students were kidnapped while they were sleeping in their boarding school dormitories in the town of Jangebe, in circumstances similar to the Boko Haram kidnapping of more than 270 girls in Chibok in 2014. This man, a former bandit, says he led several others to help bring the girls back.
We met and told them we came in peace, to leave with the girls who for no fault of theirs found themselves in such a situation. They also spoke about their grievances and why they took the girls. It was a long, difficult process full of tension, but we also came ready and prepared for the unforeseen.
The girls have now been taken to a secure location for medical examinations before they are reunited with their families. But that hasn't stopped excited parents like Lawali Usman to get close to where they are.
My joy is indescribable. I called my wife to tell her the girls are back. I haven't seen my daughter, but I'm relieved she's back. The past 4 days were traumatic. Now we can afford to eat, sleep and smile.
The governor of Zamfara state, who has offered amnesty to gunmen who surrender, insists dialogue with the bandits will continue despite the pitfalls.
So it was those that refused that we are now fighting. And we thank God that we have the repentant ones. And those repentant ones are working for us, and they are working for the government, they are working for the security. So we're going to continue with that process, because not all of them that are bad, like the one that we use to secure the release of these children, they are all repentant bandits, because nobody can be able to release them.
The kidnapping of these girls on Friday came hours before the release of another set of students kidnapped in central Nigeria. The Zamfara attack is the 6th mass school kidnapping in northern Nigeria in recent years.
With the girls back, attention is now shifting to the future of education. With schools continuously being targeted, especially in northern part of Nigeria, there are fears that the region, which has the highest rates of poverty, may fall even farther behind.
It's not clear if these girls will have the courage to return to school, or even if their parents will allow them to return. But for now, they're happy to enjoy their freedom, hoping the government will do more to protect them. Ahmed Idris for Inside Story.
Well, kidnapping is an increasingly common tactic used by armed groups and criminal gangs across Nigeria. 2 weeks ago, gunmen abducted 42 people, including 27 students from a secondary school in Niger State. In December, more than 300 pupils were taken in a raid on a school in Katsina State. Boko Haram claimed responsibility. 110 girls were snatched in Yobe State in 2018. And in a case which grabbed worldwide attention in 2014, the Chibok girls, 276 of them, were kidnapped in Borno State. Okay, let's bring in our guests. In Abuja, Mike Ejioform is a former director of Nigeria's State Security Service. In Coventry, Aliyu Musa is an independent researcher in conflict studies. And from London, Bulama Bukarti is an analyst at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Welcome to you all. Bulama Bukarti, I want to start with you. Kidnapping children seems to be becoming a growth industry in Nigeria. Why is that happening, and why is it happening now?
Yeah, unfortunately, kidnapping children is becoming a very rampant thing in Nigeria, and perhaps the most thriving industry in the country. And there are several reasons why terrorists and criminals target children. Number one, children are the softest target you can find anywhere in the world. They are unable to defend themselves, and Nigerian schools are unfortunately so exposed to attacks because there is no security presence around schools, especially in boarding areas. Secondly, terrorists know that children or kidnapping children is an excellent propaganda tool, and they can extort money from government. So it comes with propaganda and profit. And finally, terrorists and criminals have seen that there are no consequences to action. This is not the first time children are being kidnapped in Nigeria. In the last 3 months, like you said on the top, at least 3 mass kidnapping of children has happened, and nobody was held to account in any of those incidents. In fact, there are credible reports, though denied by governments, that these terrorists get paid to release the children.
Aliyu Musa, I want to come to you now because Bulama is describing these kidnap gangs as terrorists. Is that the correct phrase to use? Are these gangs akin to Boko Haram, or are there wider groups involved in this?
Well, in a way, they are, by their action, terrorists, because they are terrorizing the society, causing a lot of havoc. They are acting just like Boko Haram acted some years ago when they abducted girls from Chibok. They are acting the same way as a faction of Boko Haram did some years ago when they took away girls from Dapchi. And they are doing exactly what Boko Haram did when they kidnapped school children because they wanted to register their name on the world map. It is a very strategic decision. Like my colleague Bulama Bukarti said, it is a very strategic way of drawing attention, making governments get down on their knees to kind of assent to their demand urgently, because one, they want money, two, they want to be seen to have the upper hand. So in a way, yes, I agree with him, they are terrorists. But on the second hand, let us look at the problem that got us where we are today. Many of them are people that we know are headers. They are people we know who had cattle. They were heading their cattle, but then many of them complained of injustice some years ago. They are from a particular tribe known as Fulani. I'm not making excuses for them. But at a point, under certain governments in the past, especially in states of Zamfara and Katsina states, there were a group of vigilantes who were ganging up and victimizing them to the point of dispossessing them of their only wealth, which is this cattle. Many of them lost the cattle, lost their family members, lost their settlements, and they resorted to this kind of crime. What I am expecting is, as much as we use the physical force, as much as we use similar action of violence to kind of force them to stop this thing, is to start thinking of the political and the economic solution. And that is why, in as much as we look at them as terrorists, we should also look at the injustice that has been done that brought us to this particular situation. And that is why, while I call them terrorists, I believe injustice begets injustice.
Mike Ejioform, given what Aliyu has said there, the logistics of rounding up 300 terrified schoolgirls and transporting them from a school are significant. I mean, that takes some organisation. Is there any danger, do you think, that these groups are being infiltrated by more organised groups, such as Boko Haram, for example?
Yeah, before I answer your question, I think I want to draw a distinction between terrorist groups and bandits, because what is happening in Northwest, especially in Zamfara State, is just act of banditry, which is organized crime. People are involved in kidnapping and robbery. These people have no ideology, they have no demands to make for government, and unlike Boko Haram, that has its own ideology, they have demands to make from government. They talk of Islamization of Nigeria, Western education is forbidden, and such demands, they must have ideology. So this is quite distinct from these bandits operating in a gang of armed robbers and kidnappers who are involved in violent crime. They're talking about how they organize, how easily they organize. It beats my imagination, and it beats the imagination of everybody, that hundreds of people can be kidnapped at a time. And how are they moved? How are they fed? So it's there's more to it that government should look into. Are there people involved from within government has been alleged, or within the political elites? We've even heard this morning that one of the victims, one of the girls, also saw his father among the bandits. So it calls to question an in-depth investigation to establish what these people want, because the ease with which they operate and kidnap these students in large numbers. This is not the first, it's not the second, it's not the third, and it has become consistent with this area, making demands. And you get to hear that government claims they've not paid any ransom.
Let me ask you about, I'm going to interrupt you because I want to ask you about the financial aspect of this. As we mentioned before, there's an estimate that the kidnappers have received at least $11 million between 2016 and March 2020. That money is going somewhere, and one would imagine that therefore the threat from these groups is getting bigger because they are now, one would assume, better equipped, better organized, and have more ready cash at their disposal.
Yeah, that's very correct. Even though I'm not sure of the exact figure or the amount collected so far, because nobody has calculated it, but definitely money has exchanged hands. And this money exchanging hands might go into buying of arms to prosecute their war. I will see one of the negotiators who even paraded some of these bandits with sophisticated weapons, prohibited firearms, and even rocket launchers. And they begin to ask questions. How are they financed? If they are not getting a ransom, then how are they getting money to finance all this? They come in motorcycles and panel vans, Hilux vehicles. This means money. And I think it's even wrong on the part of the state government to begin to negotiate and pay ransom with this people. I think the government should take decisive action. Just like the last speaker said, we're not going to get solution to this problem through fighting, using the military.
Yeah. Aliyu, I think I'm going to stop there because I think Aliyu wants to make a point. Aliyu, go ahead.
Yes, my colleague Mike is saying that it is wrong for government to negotiate. If I ask my colleague now, is it right to allow those school girls to die if the government does not negotiate with those criminals? I am sure my colleague Mike wouldn't let those girls die, because the question is whether those girls should be allowed to die or something should be done to get them out of there. There is no way with the kind of arms those guys have and the kind of, the possible thing is for those people to use the girls as human shields. Some of the people that were recently released from the captivity of this, some of the bandits in Niger State, said at a point when they saw a plane, a jet hovering over where they were kept, the criminals made up their mind to kill all of them. Now, the danger is if there was any attempt to rescue them, we know often rescue attempts like that never end well. So the criminals will use them as human shields. In the end, the government has no choice than to negotiate with these criminals. So
Mike, you're nodding your head just as Aliyu is speaking there. Go ahead.
Yes. I don't want to be misunderstood. You know, I'm a victim of kidnapping. And earlier before this time, I had maintained that people should not pay ransom. But after my experience, I discovered that the best thing to do is to pay ransom to secure this. And I even called that the government should negotiate and get these people. Having gotten these people out, should we allow this thing to continue and allow people to be kidnapped again? So the point I'm making is, as long as these people have been freed, we should not allow a repeat of this incident because it's becoming very embarrassing. So government should take decision to flush these people out now that the people are out, because definitely you can't attack them with the victims because they'll be used as human shield. I agree entirely with that. But what I'm saying is that we cannot continue to allow this to happen.
Bulama Bukarti, there was a so-called Safe Schools initiative which was introduced in Nigeria with much pomp and circumstance, but I understand that not many of the schools in the northwest are part of this scheme. Why has that scheme not been rolled out more across Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent question. Before I go to that, I would want to just respond to what Mike said around the distinction between terrorists and criminals. I have studied the Northwest and the Northeast now for 10 years, and the distinction Mike is making is no longer tenable. The traditional difference was that Boko Haram is ideologically driven and has political objectives, while the bandits in the Northwest are people with purely economic motives. But this is no longer the case. Number one, like Dr. Aliyu has said, these people are using purely terroristic methods. They raid villages, kill dozens of people, and abduct hundreds of people, including children. Secondly, we know that there has been mounting evidence in the last 18 months or so that Boko Haram has infiltrated elements of bandits. And that's why Boko Haram claimed responsibility for the December abduction of the 344 boys you mentioned in the beginning, and also released an exclusive video of the boys in the bush, telling you clearly that Boko Haram has something to do with some elements of bandits. Number three, the bandits themselves in the Northwest have started making political demands in the last few months. We have seen videos of them protesting injustices and saying the injustices meted out on them, the exclusion from government, their inability to go to school were the reasons why they are perpetrating violence. So they are no longer groups with purely economic motives.
Let's move on from the differentials of the ideology and the circumstance. Let's move on from that. Talk to me, Bulama, about the Safe Schools initiative, because given everything that all three of you gentlemen have said, it would seem that the Safe Schools initiative was at least a good start in terms of protecting children within schools from gangs that you have been talking about. Why has that not been used better or more widely in Nigeria?
Yes, so the Safe School initiative was introduced in 2014 after the abduction of the Chibok girls, the 276 girls, over 100 of whom are still in Boko Haram's custody. And why the initiative hasn't been effective is because it hasn't been implemented. It was just declared by the government, and it takes more than mere declaration to secure schools. And so what do we see? I mean, it's not that the initiative itself is restricted to a particular section of Nigeria, no. It is that it was just declared on paper and on audio by governments, and no implementation was done. And that's why even in the most vulnerable state of Yobe, we saw an abduction similar to this 2 years ago when 110 girls were taken in Dabchi. And I can tell you, everywhere across northern Nigeria, schools are completely exposed. In this particular incident we are talking about, hundreds of gunmen invaded the school, and they met only one security guard who is neither a police officer nor a military and not a trained personnel.
Okay, I want to
And
ask
that
Mike
happened
Ejioform
when they
here,
started
I want to ask Mike Ejioform a particular security question. Nigeria's defense minister said last month that villagers should stand up to the attackers. A, is that feasible? B, what is the risk that if you get groups of, for want of a better phrase, vigilantes banding together, that you just exacerbate the problem?
Well, I think it's the most bizarre solution to the problem. That is strictly calling for anarchy. If the defense minister have said this in various fora that possibly it was a slip of the tongue, or he made a mistake, or he didn't mean what he said. Because if you say people should defend themselves, people are armed to the teeth, invading communities, invading schools, and you ask people to rise up and defend themselves. The primary purpose of government actually is protection of life and property as enshrined in our constitution. So the people have surrendered that responsibility to government. It's a social contract. And I don't expect that people should begin defending themselves. That will not only jeopardize their own interest or their safety, but also promote anarchy in the society.
Aliyu Musa, one of the problems seems to be that, as I understand it, the police services and the military are controlled by the federal government, and this is essentially a state-level problem at the moment, and state governors are saying that this is something that the federal government should be helping them with. But if I understand it correctly, the president is saying this is essentially a state problem. Who's responsible ultimately for this?
Well, it is a federal problem, even though the Constitution says every state governor is the chief security officer of his state. But the states governors haven't got that power to deploy the military or even order the commissioner of police. We have had situations in the past where a commissioner of police tried to remove a state governor. So you can imagine the situation state governors have found themselves. The fact is, the president still has got, the responsibility is on the president to take charge of the situation. So I can't see why he's passing the buck onto the states.
I want to ask about the long-term effect of this, because according to UNICEF, there's a net attendance rate of just 53% in primary schools in northern Nigeria. The level for girls is even lower, as I'm sure you know. What impact are attacks like this having on families which are now wary of sending a whole generation of children in Nigeria to school? Bulama, Bukarti, just briefly if you could, because we are beginning to get to the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that criminals and terrorists in Nigeria have declared a war on education. And Nigerian children are now being forced to choose between their lives and their education. And no child should have to make such a decision. Parents are having to see the decision to send their children to school as a difficult one. And this is going to swell the number of Nigerian children out of school. As we speak, there are at least 10.5 million children out of school. And as long as these attacks continue, this number would continue to grow. Even for those who continue to go to school, we know that there are mental health issues associated with going through traumas like this. And we know that an atmosphere of fear and apprehension has been created around all schools in northern Nigeria. And effective teaching and learning doesn't take place in an atmosphere of fear and apprehension. And so I think it is for the government and the international community to work together to ensure that every single Nigerian child enjoys the right to education, and they do that safely.
Well, I want to say thanks to all our guests, Mike Ejioform, Aliyu Musa, and Bulama Bukarti. Thank you too for watching. You can watch this and our previous episodes anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on Twitter. We are at AJ Inside Story. From me, Rob Matheson, and the whole team here in Doha, bye for now.